Hello, welcome to the Twitch stream and or YouTube video and or insert domain name and or other stream. Thank you for joining us for this stream. This
That
is
was
a person and not a robot talking.
Yep, totally not AI. And hello everyone, welcome to this month's delayed uh episode of the 800s. I am your co-host Alex, and you just heard from my totally not AI co-host Adam, and our absolutely totally 100% not AI person behind the screen who makes everything happen, Alan. Thank you as always. uh But for reals though, no AI in this. It's all off the cuff mostly. Except for anyways, with that, why don't we quick get into our top of
That's what
the
the
show
AI
plug.
would say.
I don't think AI could flub as much of that as I just did. With
All
that, let's
right,
get into the quick plugs at the top and we'll get going.
sure thing. If you joined us for our pre-show, you heard some music from Incompetech. That was Fearless First. If you'd like to check out more, check out incompetech.filmmusic.io. Otherwise, we are the DMs Table. Hit us up on dmstable.com to find out more about who we are and what we do. But enough about the boring stuff.
Let's get to the meat of this. So this month on the 800s, we'll be discussing our November book, NPCs by Drew Hayes. When we play TTRPGs, we create whole worlds, but what if those worlds had a life of their own? What if every life lived, taken, or sent out on an adventure had their own story and consciousness? In this novel, we find out what happens when the adventuring party dies and is taken over by non player characters, or NPCs.
Nice tie into the title.
I try. Every single one of these, I try. Some work way
All
better than
right.
others.
If this is your first time joining us, first off, welcome. Second off, let me give you a quick rundown of how our show works. We are a discussion show primarily about the book. This week is NPCs by Drew Hayes, of course, as you just found out by Alex's description. At any time, if you have something you would like to say about the book, feel free to put it in chat. Alex and myself will monitor chat and look for topics or questions to throw out to everybody to discuss. And of course, anytime we change topics or questions, we will give our own opinions on such topic to give you guys in chat the opportunity to type up your responses. And of course, if we see something cool in chat, we'll give it a shout out. That's pretty much how it
Yeah.
goes.
And just the usual disclaimer, this is a show that's geared towards adults. We do cover adult topics and content and such, and while we try not to swear all the time, it does happen, so bring kids around at your own discretion. Also, we're trying to create a fun sport community here over at DM Stable, where everyone can feel free to be themselves, love what they love, geek out about what they want to geek out about, be passionate about what they want to be passionate about without anybody shitting on them. So in sum, be nice or go off.
Very nice. Without further ado, let's get into the conversation. Alex, chat. What were your first thoughts of NPCs?
Uh I honestly was not entirely sure. Like, I didn't even read a description going into this, so I had like no preconceived notions. But the beginning was a little bit confusing with the prologue of just like, wait, are we in the like what world are we in here? Are we in our world, or is this like, is it a video game? Is it a TTRPG? Like, I had a little bit of a hard time quite figuring that out off the top, but once I did, I was just like, ooh, very cool premise. Like, I like this idea of like, because I don't know about how many other people out there who watch our streams do it, despite the fact that we are literally called DM's Table. Uh, but when I play D&D, one of the things I try to think about is like how does my character interact with the world? And I do try to think about the lives of the NPCs, but it kind of stops at a certain point. I certainly think about it more than those characters did, especially what's his rogue nuts, who is just like, it's just an NPC, kill him, it doesn't matter. Uh, but thinking about what it would be like to be in a world that constantly had to be reset for us is such a cool, interesting premise and adds a layer of depth to these NPCs, like the lives of NPCs, that I was just like, ooh, this is conceptual for the moment, but I found it interesting and I was kind of hooked on the premise alone from the beginning.
Hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying about jumping in. It's a little confusing. I think, if you weren't to read the premise, it'd be like, what the heck is going on? I do think it's kind of a hard setting to set up. It's an expected setting of it's a tabletop RPG, uh, pseudo world. Um, it's kind of a hard thing to really set the stage for without taking a super long time to do. Um, and despite that clunky get go from the start, once you get the idea, it's kind of fun. You see a lot of the tabletop cliches right away, like the murder hobo stuff, and oh,
Meet
I'll just
demons.
roll up another character. Like, who gives a shit?
All real.
But yeah, I like the premise, and I was curious to see where it went.
Yeah, and V.S. Drake says that they loved how the story started and how the hook that pulled in the characters. Uh, the clear this up for us, V.S. Drake, if you can. By the hook, are you refer? Sorry, actually, by the characters, are you referring to the NPCs themselves, or are you referring to the player characters? Um, but yes, I do actually kind of agree with V.S. Drake here. Is this book almost felt like a prequel? You know, but the whole idea that like the NPCs know that they know the inner workings of the politics of their world in a way that players don't until they've explored it for a while. But these NPCs have lived it their whole lives, so of course they know that their king is crazy and kills people who have adventurers died in their town, so they desperately seek a way to keep their town alive. Like, that is what I mean by the extra depth into like the lives of the NPCs that I think does kind of get glossed over, even by characters and players who care about the worlds that they're in, and even the NPCs that are in those worlds. Is it's and you can't possibly do this for every single character in a campaign in the same way that you can't do this for every person in real life, but like the depth of the lives that they live matters and has consequence, and you get to kind of get a glimpse into that, and it is kind of cool to see that happen in a way that still has to interact with people who don't know that that's the case.
Yeah. Well, let's make that a topic-ish question.
Right.
What was your favorite this is NPCs living in a world that resets constantly moment?
um I think I have two for two different reasons. One, I thought that it was the Mad King sending out wave after wave after wave of invite to go after this dungeon in the hopes that it grabs adventurers from our world, but captures anybody who is listed as an adventurer, even if they are NPCs, right? So it's just like everybody else is just being sent to their doom for this thing that is supposed to be exclusively for players. and what was it? They were the 13th wave, I think. So I thought that
Yeah,
was really interesting of like, oh, so in this world, he does something that is seen as crazy, and the character himself seems like the kind of crazy person who would do that, and it but it is all built around this idea that it is meant to catch the player characters in the so how would that look if it's not just like code that doesn't do it until you arrive? What if that existed all the time? And
yeah,
in a similar vein, the other one that I really like is, why am I blanking on the barbarian girl's name? Um,
yeah. I
uh,
couldn't tell you. I'm bad with names.
yeah, we're so bad at this. I'm so sorry, guys. Like everybody listening, we try, but like,
I'm
um,
not. If we don't know, you should know. No, I'm just kidding. Da, 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 da,
you're the ones who are meant to
da.
know for us. Uh, but the idea that she got kidnapped by the goblins and was just like, wow, this is a nice vacation. I was just like, I thought that
So
was
that's
like a cool
actually,
like turn on its head.
yeah. So that's actually one of mine is the moment where the guard is all like, "Wait, you knew you're fine with being kidnapped. They treat you okay. You just go and hang out with them and then they let you go. My entire life is spent preventing this action and you're just okay with it."
Gabrielle, that's the one. And you're talking about Eric, and you're talking about Eric's realization of what that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that whole tie-in, yeah. But yeah, I liked hers because hers is kind of the catalyst for the rest of them going like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's that like glass shattering moment that once one person's glass shatters, everybody else is like, shh. Uh,
So to be fair, this is book one of a 5 book series.
yes, it just feels like a prequel, not so much like a first book. Is kind of my point.
Yeah. You gotta set the you're setting the backstory for your adventurers, how they got
Yeah,
into the adventuring lifestyle.
yeah, and we kind of and we see that a lot in books where they have a few chapters or several chapters dedicated to that, and then they try to jam all of the rest of the story into like two-thirds the size it should be. So there is something to be said for somebody who does be like, well, I'm just going to make this first book essentially a prequel. It's a lot easier to say that's okay when all 5 books are out,
Yeah.
as opposed to when it's just on its own.
Interestingly enough, the first book has the lowest rating of all 5.
That does kind of make sense because it is exposition heavy.
Yeah. VS Drake had some comments about this. He liked the Mad King and then the Gathering Adventures for the fourth wall break stuff.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I liked the wrecking the economy thing too. Like,
Oh yeah, the economic impacts of stuff was
yeah,
interesting for sure.
just something you don't really have to consider when you're just tabletopping. But like, if it
Mhm.
was an actual world, you would have to face the consequences of.
Well, it does beg the question though of, is that the case only because this particular world was as it's supposed to be a module, right? And that module is made to be ultra realistic. So does this still occur for modules that aren't as realistic, or is it a whole different system? And I've gone down a rabbit hole that has nothing to do with this book.
I mean, that's where you kind of gotta like take it as, is this a repeating world where adventures cycle through, or is this a every world is a brand new world every time somebody plays it? It's like when you play the world, this is the first time it's happened. It's not a repeating
Yeah.
activity. So it wouldn't necessarily have as much of an impact on the economy because it's only one adventuring party out of millions of people in the world.
True, but I mean, those implications having that kind of depth is that only because the world itself is bound by these harder rules? Like, it is one of the questions that came up for me in this. In fact, um, I really did actually want to talk about what your thoughts were on this idea that the story itself, do you think the story itself creates the world, or do you think the world exists and why? And you've kind of touched on that a little bit, but
Yeah, I think so. We see moments where the NPCs' actions change things in the real world, which honestly I think is a kind of funny trope in and of its own. When like a DM goes, "I totally remember this part because I read this earlier," and then they reread it, and it's like, "Oh, that's not what I remember in the book before," because there's always so many details in these modules. It's like it's hard to remember every little thing. So it's kind of a funny little Easter egg for the DM to be like, "Oh, wait, was that like that before? I thought it was different before." But anyway, those actions where like the module changes with the NPC's actions, I think kind of gives you a glimpse into it's like the world exists and the module happens as like a narration of what's happening in the world.
well, I've seen it in other books, and I do tend to agree with you that this does seem to be a playthrough, because there are other books where the NPCs seem to have these memories, but the memories, when checked, don't seem to hold up all the time. And this one, the only reason why it was still a question in my mind at all was because when they try to think about why certain things are the way they are, they kind of come up against a wall of like, well, that's just kind of how we do things. Like, that's just what it was. So are these like implant? So in my mind, the question was, are these just like implanted memories, or is this a playthrough and this is just how the world functions? And then those tendrils attached to the players are what alters it going forward, or or does it
Okay.
reset? And we don't really get to see if it resets or not, but I tend to agree with you that this seems to be a full playthrough, because when they challenge those memories, it's not like the memories fall apart, they just don't fully understand why it works. And how many times do you run through your own life and be like, why do we do things this way? um, and it kind of felt like one of those, it felt like one of those moments, only more revelatory, and so I tend to believe more that it already exists and the players are just playing through it. But it is kind of cool that like maybe the module created the world, just by imagining the world it created, and it set those rules, and the world existed with those rules and just lived on, and the players just kind of matrix into it.
Yeah. No, I think I don't know if there's necessarily an answer, right? I mean, it's a
But that's
fantastical
why
world.
But that's why I wanted to bring it up as a question, is I don't think this has a definitive answer. My current theory is what I just laid out, but I think it's an interesting thing to contemplate, right? And
Yeah.
it makes reading the other books in this series seem more worth it to just get more answers on that, you know, potentially.
Yeah. I've got a topic for you. Um,
Oh, really quick, VS Drake says, I think that's exactly this, Alex. I think the module establishes the matrix and the bridge breaks that fourth wall. Yeah, the bridge is kind of like the phone, or that room where they have all the guns in the Matrix, or where where they download the fighting.
Yeah.
Except it can only do critical failures, or
Do
failures in
you
general.
do you think um so I've been trying to think of how to word this, kind of staying
Okay.
on topic with the bridge,
Yeah.
but do you think the in-game things having real world consequences is too story breaking? Like, does it pull you out of the story, or do you think it's a good addition that makes it feel more alive?
I think it is an addition that it makes me wonder. It would Sorry. Let me. Uh, I also need to articulate this correctly. I think it is an addition that is a bit of a Schrodinger's thing. It exists as the potential for both, but we won't know until we observe what happens through the rest of the story. Uh, because it could be world breaking in a way that's not fun, but it could also be something like, because this world is hyper realistic, the connection between our world and that one might be stronger. Or there's a lot of potential implications here. It could just be, if it's treated lazily, I could see it as being just taking me out of it. But for now, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, what are the mechanics of how this works? Why does it interact in both ways? And if that gets addressed in a way that's satisfying, I'm okay with it. So it works for now, but I withhold complete judgment until I read the rest of the series.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely can set some things up depending on how Hayes wants to play it.
Exactly.
Um, I get the feeling that, it kind of says this isn't a mind experiment. It's somebody found this alternate dimension and a way to record what's happening in the alternate dimension in this mystical book that just takes a snapshot of this time period. And, it sets
Yeah.
it sets the premise that this could be not just a fantastical mind game of somebody, but an artifact that somebody created and distributed across the world.
Created or
Completely sets the
discovered.
tone. Yeah, it changes the tone from fun little experiment to something more real. If you
Yeah.
decide to take it like that.
But to your point, though, is that is another very cool theory that, if treated well, could be awesome, but if treated poorly, could be kind of lame, as kind of like a just random Deus Ex Machina of, these things just exist because I want the mechanics of it, and I want like, that's boring. But if it's something like what you said, where somebody stumbled upon a way to visit or connect to another world that potentially binds the two worlds together in a way that is interesting to learn about the hows and whys of it, right?
And they marketed it to an extremely small demographic.
This might have more, well, these days it has more mainstream appeal. Anyway, I think RPGs at the very least are realistic enough that even if you don't roll dice, I think the idea that there's a lot of people who game and they understand what NPCs are and how they're often treated. You know,
Yeah,
I think there's broad spectrum nerd appeal. This isn't going to appeal to everybody, but that could be said about maybe half the books we read. So
nothing's gonna appeal to everyone.
exactly.
All right, what was this book's strongest feature? What do you think stood out the best? Was it characters, world building, plot? What to you was the strongest aspect of this book?
Um, Bit of a combination. I think the two strongest things are the overall premise, and we've talked kind of ad nauseum about that and what we like about it. So I'll leave that as is. I like the general premise of this, but I think the other biggest strength is the characters themselves. The character growth in particular, I thought was treated very, very well. Uh, Assumptions are made about the characters right from the beginning, and we see those assumptions overturned in a way that makes sense and feels very satisfying, and we watch them grow into those roles in a way that no character felt two-dimensional unless they were.
Intentionally two-dimensional.
Yes. In fact, the most two-dimensional character is the rogue that is played by a person in the real world. You know, like it's ridiculous. You know.
Yeah, I really liked how balanced all the characters felt.
Mhm.
A lot of the times you'll get focused on one, maybe two characters in a book, and Hayes did a really good job of kind of sharing the spotlight with all four NPCs, and still gave some light to a couple of side characters beyond that. Um, he made sure to spend some time on the backstory of each and the motives of each continuing on in this farce of being adventurers. Um, I thought it really well. I thought that part really well played out, and I think the characters is definitely the strongest aspect of this book.
Why don't we just build off of that then? Is like, whose character growth was the most interesting to you?
um, Good question. I liked Thistle, um, but I also liked the guard guy.
Eric.
Yeah,
He's the guard turned rogue,
yeah, guard turned rogue. I liked
turned
that
one with
he.
the artifact.
Yeah, I think he had the most like upending aspect of this, where he had to come to terms with how his world really was, and that his old life was something of a fantasy now, and he had to move on.
Mhm.
Where I feel like Thistle kind of accepted that pretty early on, um, but
Yeah.
but he had a lot of like, let's find out about my mysterious background. He had a lot of good stuff there. Well, how about yours?
Eric was one of my top ones, basically verbatim for the reasons that you mentioned. He's a character who I think of all of the characters there, he was the one who was the least bound to his current position and knew the most about the fact that he was the least bound to it of anybody without having the like Thistle to some degree was just like, yeah, I'm just here until I die and rejoin my wife. So he was like kind of checked out. But I don't think that's the same as Eric realizing he's like, I want to be the best guard that I can, and that's what I'm building my life around. But none of this feels like me entirely. And he like notes that I know because like the way that he approaches being a guard felt too interested in the things and people he was guarding against to be just a guard, and the fact that
Yeah.
he just gets to lean into that, and in much the same way Gabrielle is my other favorite, is I want more from her, and I'm fairly sure we'll get more from her. That's why she falls just a little shy of Eric right now. But I really love this idea of the girl who's just like, man, I was born into something. I hated it. And I just like liked being around the goblins. I liked finding things that I was good at. I was told I was a good tracker, so I got to lean into that. And the the fact that she's just like, I wasn't mad. That was just a tantrum, you know? And I liked, you know, I really like the talk that she had with the half orc, and he was just talking about what it means to be a barbarian, in that anger, is like a spout on a keg, like that whole conversation, and the way that she took it to heart, instead of like the way that she took it to heart felt earned and not forced, or like kind of a hand wave, because
Mhm.
like in a lot of those situations someone would be like, what you just said is ridiculous, but she was just like, no, that makes sense, and then she thinks about it, and like that's where real character growth, I think, gets underplayed sometimes, is like, just have your character think through the thing, and
Yeah.
like play it out in their head. And I like that she actually did that, and it was just like, you know what? I'm happy like this. That's cool. I'm gonna stick with it. And she doesn't even have she's like the only one who has no attachment to some extra planar or extra dimensional entity or anything. Thistle has a god. Both of the other two touch the artifact at some point, but she's just like, nope, I was never meant to be uh, the mayor's daughter or whatever. I was always meant to be this, and I'm happy with it. And I really like that. That was just like, she didn't need something grand outside of herself to figure that out,
Yeah.
or again, some Deus Ex Machina type of thing.
Yeah. V.S. Drake liked Thistle. He had a lot of interesting growth. He was featured a lot. That's definitely true. He did feel like if there was a main character, he was it. He was definitely the party leader for sure.
Oh yeah. I think he gets a lot more though, because of them. He's the one who had the most tie in to the what was needed to make this story happen. So he felt his growth was good, don't get me wrong, but he felt like the horse pulling the cart sometimes. And
Yeah.
just because you're the horse pulling the cart doesn't mean that you're necessarily the main character. Everybody was there, but at the same time, like, we do learn a lot about his backstory, but that's not inherently growth per se. His growth is mostly into becoming a paladin, and even that was like, albeit if you let me see my life in the afterlife.
I
But
think that's
yes.
a fair request.
Oh no, it was cool. And he's honestly, like, if we're gonna talk uh, if we're gonna talk favorite characters, would you like to do that? not
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Okay.
Let's just do straight up favorite characters.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were gonna jump
Oh
into.
well, my favorite characters are actually the other two that we didn't mention. Uh, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
Thistle, Thistle and Grumps. Grumpf. In fact, Grumpf is actually arguably my favorite. I like that he's the character who, uh, you know, is wiser than he lets on, doesn't speak a lot, and he still comes through with this heavy wisdom and like a groundedness that some of the others don't have. I mean, don't get me wrong, Thistle is very much a like,
Did we lose you, Alex? I don't know.
mythical and
Oh.
strategic, like, facilitate the rest of the party. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Hello.
Lost you for a second there.
Oh yeah, sorry. I apologize. My internet
I
is
wasn't
not the
sure if it
best
was
right.
you or me.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either, but mine's been kind of dicey a bit. Like, I've lost you a couple times, but you were carrying on when we came back, so I assumed it.
Oh, he's gone again. So sad.
Was
Alex,
me.
come back. Come into the light. Lost you again there, Alex. All right, let me talk for a while. Let's see if your internet stabilizes for in a couple of minutes. My favorite character was the DM for sure. Just because he was all like, I hate what these players are doing, but I'm gonna roll with it anyway. He was a consummate professional. He treated
Mhm.
every action as a DM should, and just tried his best to get through his murder hoboing party. And he stuck through it. He found the story interesting, and he rewarded the one guy who wasn't being an asshole the whole time. That's it. That's what I got. Oh, I think we lost Alex again. No. Let's move on to a new topic. How about
Uh,
least
Sorry, that
least
is
favorite?
what was that?
Sorry, let's move on to a new topic. What was your least favorite aspect of the book?
Um, the plot, quite honestly, was a bit it was like really sluggish art but like it didn't feel like it didn't need to be a lot, but it still felt like it needed to be more. I don't know. I just never felt like driven by the plot in this book. Again, it felt like Thistle was kind of dragging along behind him, kicking and screaming sometimes. And
Yeah,
like it either needed to be chopped down and condensed or it needed to have something with a little more. Having Thistle be like, well, here's the problems that we still have, and
yeah.
like having to force it along was like, yeah, it was good for Thistle as a character, but for the plot, it was just kind of like, I guess maybe that is kind of the problem with doing a prequel style book as your first book is that the character stakes, I don't know, they felt resolved very early on.
Yeah.
And
This
yeah, I felt like there either needed to be more urgency or it needed to be condensed. Something just felt a little amiss, but in a prologue, usually that's filled in by context from the original. Not prologue, but like a
yeah.
prequel. It's usually like filled in with context from the first story, and this didn't have that, and that maybe is what I feel is missing. But
No, I get it. I totally get it. Like their main motivation was to not get their town murdered by the Mad King because some adventurers died in their town.
yeah,
And Thistle even acknowledges that really early on. He's like, "Yeah, we've probably accomplished that. Like
but are
everything
we
we do from
sure?
here on out is unnecessary." Yeah, I
I
I
mean,
definitely agree. I think the plot was the weakest part of this book. Hayes definitely stuck to a structure. There's the
yeah,
rule of three was solidly in place here. We had the Goblin Camp, the the champion thingy, and
the
then the
tournament,
dungeon, the tournament and the dungeon. Yeah.
yeah,
So like rule of three perfectly met. But there wasn't anything that was like interesting. To me, like the most interesting part of the plot was when Thistle met the one chick who had the cool return daggers and like
yeah, and we,
they had this cool exposition back and forth and they chit-chatted about motivations and Thistle got into intrigue and stuff. Stuff was happening that was interesting and like that was severely lacking from a lot of the plot other than
yeah.
that point, I think.
exactly. Like I think VS Drake puts it pretty well when they said that like they wish they don't think the plot had much meat to it, right? You know, it was all
Yeah.
bone. You know, it's hello he VS Drake says hello week but prescriptively met. I think that's a good way of putting it. You know, it's just like it checked the boxes, but that was about it.
Yeah.
You
Do you have
know, but
any
go ahead.
final topics you want to chit chat about?
Um I wanted to and I'm trying to figure out a bit on how to word this as well. Uh what do you think this is going to be a bit predictive. Have you read any the other books or no?
Nope.
Okay. So since neither of us have done this, this is a fun little one. What do you think the other artifacts are, the complete set?
Oh. I don't know. Let's see here. What makes an important object in D&D campaigns? It feels like it should be a dice set because first one
Mhm.
affected a D20, maybe other ones affect other dice. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Any
But
is that
obviously
your
like the D20 one is like it affects way more than any other die.
yeah, but it specifically only affects one half of what that die does. It only affects the critical failures for the most part.
Well, I mean, it makes critical failures.
Yes, but like critical successes exist as well. So is that a separate piece or is it the same one and they haven't figured out how to do both things?
Turn the dial around.
Or maybe you have to charge it with a certain kind of energy and they all end up with failures, but like um
Well, that would be cool. VS Drake says, I think it will be a tome and it will impact the story of the module. That'd be cool if they could just write down something that was like, and then they all got 300,000 gold. Oh, then they all have 300,000 gold.
I like the idea that this is based on dice. So like my theory is that they're based on the things that you roll for. So so crit failures, I think crit successes are also a thing. I think there is going to be something that allows you to roll for stats. So something that affects your like abilities within yourself or within others. Um, and you know how that would change the world around it. I think there's going to be something that rolls for chance, like pure chance. You know, like so for that one, it would be like essentially the D100 equivalent.
Hmm.
You know, um, I think there's going to be something that does roll. Um, I don't know if damage is the right thing, like damage or healing specifically, or both. Um, I'm also trying to partially fit these into things like what would our characters bind with potentially, you know?
Yeah,
So
it'd be cool to
I
have
think it'll
something that granted you advantage. Like, oh, I got stabbed in the gut. Boop! Yay, I dodged out of the way.
well something along the lines of like you know when Thistle throws his dagger and the wind kicks up and it hits the bullseye even though he was gonna miss it, you know? Things like that. Like and being able but the thing that I don't understand fully is like how would that affect the world like the real world quote unquote as compared to the fantasy world. And the the crit one is I think pretty interesting because it is the exact opposite of how the crit failure works. So like how would that be something, how would that be taken by that story? Is that something that draws more people in? Is it that the characters become more invested in the world because they're having so much success, or does it cause absolute mayhem? But it does it cause absolute mayhem in that world, but because like the artifact that they find, um, hold on, looks like you. Oh no, you're moving. The artifact that they find when they use the power incorrectly creates the demon eggs, right? So what if they have the good luck? Yeah, I see you trying to hold still. uh,
Sorry.
but like, what does that create though? If they have one that is like a crit success, does that create angels or something? Or like, what kind of chaos? What kind of chaos does these bring with them as well? I thought was an interesting thing to wrap my mind around. So I think I chose the most complex possibility, but like, I think the fact that we can easily all come up with different things uh is cool, especially because Via Straight comes up with the tome and thinks that the bridge does a lot more than just the dice. I think that is also very interesting in and of itself. Like, is this somehow like a link to the whole DM's board?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely possibilities and things. All
Possibilities abound.
right, let's get into final thoughts.
Right. So, um, I'll start us off with that then. I thought overall this felt more kind of like a very simple, cozy kind of read where, like, if you're okay with a plot that just kind of does the bare minimum, but you are really cool with it, diving into characters and kind of noodling on the premise, like what we were just doing with the what are the rest of the artifacts, like the bridge.
Hmm.
Um, I think there is a lot of potential there, and because it's the first book, and it also helps it's an author that I trust to do better. Um, I think it is. I think if you treat it more like a prequel or or like an extended prologue, it reads better, and it's something that I think I would recommend to anybody who has played like an RPG of any kind, especially TTRPGs or D&D. It's not the best book, but it's one that I think is worth getting through, assuming that there's some more to this. There's good development in the rest of the stories to come after. So I would recommend it to anybody who's willing to invest for the whole series, but it might, if you're going to treat it like a one-off, I'm going to be like, it's good, but like, there's other books out there if you're looking for a one-off novel.
Yeah. For me, this is a beach read. Um,
That's a good way to
it
put it.
doesn't,
It is.
yeah, it doesn't pose a lot of contemplation. It doesn't get too deep into anything. It has a really cool premise. Is about the best part of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, the characters are cool, but they're not cool enough to sell the book on its own strength.
True.
Um, I would recommend it just because it's short and it's got a funny premise, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a classic D&D storyline that feels very generic D&D and is cozy to cuddle up to.
Yeah. Yep. Beach or cottage read is a good way to put it. V.S. Drake says it's a cool premise, but
It's cool.
not Drew
Sorry for
Hayes's
this.
best book. If you listen to it, listen at a faster speed, but it's easy to put down. Yeah, I think that's actually a good way to put, like, a beach read is a read that is interesting enough to hold your attention for a while, but easy to put down because there's probably other more fun things that come up eventually.
Yeah. Yep. All right,
Uh,
let's talk about end of show things. I know how to do that part of this show. I definitely know what I'm doing. Do you ever have those moments where you're like, you're confident you know exactly what you're supposed to do, but then your brain is like, but do you? And you're like, no, no, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I did a second ago, but no, I'm not so sure.
all like that's what I live in, man.
Anyway, December 6th, we already know about is Red Shirts, a novel with three codas by John Scalzi, Return to Scalzi. Uh, and then after that is the new year, January 10. We're going to be hitting up our side piece, Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman. Excellent book. Can't wait to reread it.
I reread it for me.
Reread it. Looks like VS Drake was already excited for Dungeon Crawler Carl, and now it's on the list. So hooray!
All right. As if we haven't already talked about it enough on the side piece section, which we'll get to those coming up. Um, yeah, coming up, we will have our. I think we're gonna go back to Black History Month for February. We'll have the books, so that's Black authors. We will have books up for those shortly, and then on March we are just going to be the theme that I came up with, and I'm willing to have it vetoed because I came up with this only on my drive home from hanging out with Adam today. Uh, is I want to do Ides of March. I want to do political science fiction and fantasy. I want to see what the universe has to offer.
All right. All right. We'll talk. We'll talk it over.
I mean, I'm not. I'm specifically saying political science fiction and fantasy, not like not fiction, but science fiction and fantasy.
Okay.
So, political
Political
science.
sci-fi.
I mean, are I'm gonna say that Dungeon Crawler Carl doesn't count as that, despite the obvious. Like we'll talk about this more, but the obvious undertones. Uh, but like, I've seen I would count a Star Wars book that focuses on the Galactic Senate,
Yeah. Episode 2. Yeah. Yeah.
everyone's favorite.
Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. All
I was
right.
just that may be vetoed, and we will let you know we will let you know December 5th if that ends up changing.
All right, let's do some quick plugs. We'll talk about side pieces and then say la vie.
Such as life.
Plugs. Yes, yes. Plugs. We post these on YouTube. You should check out our YouTube channel. We are the DM's Table on YouTube. The link is below your video, unless you're already on YouTube, and then in which case you don't need our link because you're already there. Yeah. Uh, Patreon is a place that we do things. You should check our Patreon out. We are at the DM's Table on Patreon as well. You can hit us up on patreon.com/, with a DM's Table on Patreon. There's a link below your video. I don't know the actual link. I slaughtered the crap out of that. Moving on. I suggest you listen to audiobooks because they're awesome. They definitely talk to you better than I do. If you like audiobooks, check out Audible. Give us credit for sending you their way. Go to dmstable.com/audible. This is getting better, I swear. We have socials. It's not getting better. Facebook, and X. We are at the DMs table on Facebook and at DMs table on X. We also have a Discord chat if you'd like to talk to us more often and stuff. Um, you can hit us up on our socials if you want the link. Probably. Anything else that you would like to know about us, you could check out dmstable.com and you'll see more info. I feel like the guy who does the radio station for Diamond City in Fallout 4, where he doesn't really say stuff in the best way and he just kind of stutters through everything. And that's what I'm doing now. And I'll stop anytime.
I can stop anytime I want.
Okay, here's a song that I think you guys will like. It's Side Pieces by Adam and Alex. And here it goes.
All right. Well, me,
Sorry, just leaned into the shit show that was.
all right. So for me, I mean, I spent a lot of my time because I had gone pretty heavy on the side pieces, uh, catching up on mostly podcasts and such that I listened to. Like Critical Role started their fourth campaign. Uh, I finished up the first campaign for Worlds Beyond Number. Uh, there's all kinds of other things out there, but as far as like actual book side pieces go, uh, should be two, and one that I'm only partway into, and I'm trying to remember who the author is on these, so I'm looking them up. All right. Okay, so there's one that I read called Alchemized by Senlin Yu,
Hmm.
which I found to be uh so basically it's kind of like this dark fantasy series, and it is like a woman essentially with amnesia who has to fight her way through a world that is full of like all kinds of necromancy and alchemy. I was looking for something kind of Halloweeny to read, you know, and this one showed up. But I found it pretty like emotionally intense as well, which was kind of like it was nice. It's not my favorite that I've ever read, but there's some really good emotional scenes in particular between a few of the different characters. Like these inter-character interactions are heavy in a way that you don't always see even in dark fantasy, because in dark fantasy a lot of the heaviness comes from who dies and how, you know,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is more interpersonal, which I thought was pretty interesting to put into a dark fantasy that is already like surrounded by, you know, necromancy that is necromancy and alchemy that is mostly like just what if necromancy but science.
Yeah.
The way it gets treated. And then the other one that I am currently working my way through is called it's another Jason Siegel book, but also the name that I couldn't remember is Kirsten Miller, and I just started it. It's called Otherworld.
Oh, cool.
Uh, yeah, I'm only about like two chapters into that one, so I don't want to speak too much on the premise of it, but it seems interesting.
Yeah. I
Yeah, it's very
my
Black Mirror West HBO Westworld kind of vibes.
cool. For my side pieces, I actually took kind of a break. Getting through Dungeon Crawler Carl and keeping up with book club books was a bit of a challenge these last couple months, and I was missing rocking out on my way to and from work.
Fair enough.
So so I took a little bit of a break, but thanks to the fact that we were a week late with this show, I started I started Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I'm a little over halfway through, and it's fantastic so far. Highly recommend. Check it out before it becomes a movie. I hope the movie's awesome. They really did pretty cool stuff with The Martian. Really turned that into a great movie. I hope they do the same thing to Project Hail Mary. Um, but Andy Weir has done it again. It's a great book so far. I don't know. Maybe the ending sucks. I'll find out soon.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Keep us surprised. With that, thank you everybody for joining in. This was a fun chat. Uh, trying to. Alan said something about we need books for March.
Yeah.
That
Let's call it a show. Let's end the stream. Let's be done.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. This was a fun one. We'll see you next book. Bye.
All right, see you guys. Thanks for joining us.